Tonight's stories all come from drivers who spend most of their lives alone on the highway, where the road looks normal, until one small detail stops making sense. A voice on the CB that knows too much, a convoy with no drivers, and a sleeper cab that isn't as empty as it should be. Before we start, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. Let's get into it. Story 1. The voice on Channel 19. The first time I heard the voice, I was about 15 miles outside Meridian, Mississippi, rolling east with a dry van full of medical supplies, and I had both hands locked on the wheel because the rain was coming down so hard, the wipers were barely keeping up. I had been driving professionally for 14 years by then, so rain didn't scare me by itself. What scared me was the voice on Channel 19 saying, "Unit 482, ease off the hammer. You've got a wreck waiting for you past the next bend." That was my truck number. I hadn't said it on the radio that night. I hadn't said anything on the radio for almost an hour. My name's Aaron Pike. Most drivers just call me Pike. I was 42 when this happened, divorced, with one daughter named Lily, who lived with her mom down in Mobile. I was working for a regional carrier out of Alabama, mostly hauling medical, pharmacy, and light industrial freight across the southeast. Nothing glamorous, just time-sensitive loads, quiet routes, and a dispatcher who acted like every delay was personal. That night was in late March, the kind of night where the air feels warm and unstable, like storms are building somewhere behind the tree line. I had picked up in Jackson around 9, checked the cargo seal on the trailer, signed the bill of lading, grabbed coffee, and pointed my Freightliner Cascadia toward a distribution center outside Birmingham. It should have been boring. I remember that because boring is what I was hoping for. I had my ELD, showing a little over 5 hours left on my clock, enough to make the delivery with room to spare. My trailer was sealed. My fuel was good. I had eaten a chicken biscuit and a bag of barbecue chips at a truck stop near Brandon, called Lily for 10 minutes before she went to bed, then settled in with the rain the road noise and the low hum of the dash. Most nights, Channel 19 was just background clutter. You'd hear drivers warning about speed traps, debris in the lane, bears sitting in the median, sometimes just two guys arguing over which fuel stop had the worst coffee. That stretch of Mississippi was quieter than usual, maybe because of the storm, maybe because it was pushing 2 in the morning. I had the CB turned down low, static, rain, engine noise. Then the voice came through, clean, as if the man was sitting in the passenger seat. "Eastbound, you need to back it down." I glanced at the radio. There was no handle, no call sign, no other chatter around him. Just that voice, older sounding rough, but calm. I reached for the mic. "Who's calling eastbound?" Static answered me. I waited a few seconds, watching the rain shine under my headlights. Then he came back. "Talking to you, 482. That made me sit up straight. My truck number was printed on the side of the cab, sure. Anybody passing me at a fuel island could have seen it. But I was alone out there. I hadn't seen another truck in either direction for at least 10 minutes. I checked both mirrors. Just wet black highway behind the trailer and the occasional flash of reflectors. I keyed the mic again. "Where are you at?" The response came back after a short burst of static. "Far enough back, close enough to see what's coming." I didn't like that answer. There's a tone truckers use when they're messing around, and this wasn't it. This man sounded tired. Not scared exactly, more like someone who had already seen the bad thing and didn't want to watch it happen again. I eased off the throttle, mostly because the rain was heavy and the road was curving through thick pine woods. The speedometer dropped from 68 to 55. "More," the voice said. I didn't answer. Up ahead, the highway bent left around a low hill. Nothing about it looked wrong. No brake lights, no flares, no stopped traffic. But that voice had gotten under my skin. I dropped to 45. The moment I cleared the bend, my headlights caught the shine of twisted metal across both lanes. A pickup had jackknifed against the guardrail, and a small, flatbed trailer had rolled sideways behind it. Lumber was scattered all over the pavement. One board was lying across the center line with nails sticking up, and another looked long enough that if I'd hit it at highway speed, it could have kicked up under the cab or ripped something loose under the trailer. There were no emergency lights yet, no people standing outside, no hazard flashes, just wreckage sitting in the rain on the other side of a blind curve. I hit the brakes, steady, not hard enough to lock anything, and felt the trailer push behind me before everything settled. I slowed to a crawl, put on my hazards, and steered around the mess with my shoulder almost against the window. As I passed the pickup, I saw nobody inside. That was the second thing that bothered me. The truck looked fresh wrecked. Steam still drifted from the grill. Rain bounced off the hood, but there was no driver, no passenger, no footprints in the mud beside the road that I could see. I rolled hard past it and didn't breathe normal until I was a quarter mile away. Then the voice came back. "Good choice, Pike." I almost dropped the mic, not because he had warned me, because he used my name. I had not given him my name. I checked the mirrors again. Nothing. "Who is this?" I asked, a little static. Then, just another driver. "What company?" No answer. "What's your 20? Static again, longer this time. Then he said, "Don't stop at the next rest area." I stared at the radio. "What?" "Don't stop at the next rest area. Keep rolling." I looked at the dash clock. 2:13 a.m. My coffee was working through me, and I had already been thinking about stopping soon. Just a quick 5-minute break to use the restroom and check the straps at the trailer doors, even though it was a sealed load. There was a rest area about 10 miles ahead. I knew it because I had stopped there plenty of times. Normally, I would have ignored him. One warning could be luck. He could have heard about the wreck from somebody else and just happened to catch me before I reached it. There are ways to know things on the road, but my name wasn't one of them. I reached for my phone, thinking I'd call dispatch and ask if another company driver was near me, but the phone showed one bar that disappeared as soon as I touched the screen. No service. I tried anyway. Call failed. The rest area sign appeared in my headlights a few minutes later. Rest area 2 miles. My bladder complained. My brain argued with itself. I had been out here long enough to know not every weird thing is a sign. Sometimes it's just a weird thing. But I also knew truckers got robbed at rest areas. I knew guys who woke up to cut airlines, missing fuel, broken seals, or strangers knocking at the cab, pretending to need help. Being cautious had kept me alive and employed. So I stayed in the right lane but kept my speed. The ramp came up on the right. The rest area itself was barely visible through the rain, just a cluster of lights behind wet trees. I saw 2 cars parked near the restroom building, and one tractor trailer backed into a slot with no marker lights on. As I passed, my CB speaker popped. "Don't look too long," the voice said. Of course I looked, because when someone tells you not to look, your eyes go there before you can stop them. In the glow from the rest area lamps, I saw a man standing beside the dark tractor trailer. He wasn't near the cab. He was at the rear doors. Even through the rain, I could see him holding something in one hand. It caught the light in a thin white strip. Bolt cutters. Then, another man stepped out from behind the trailer and looked toward the highway as I passed. Not at traffic in general, at me. Like he had been waiting for me to pull in. I kept my eyes forward and drove. The voice said, "That's 2. My mouth had gone dry. I grabbed the mic again. "You following me," in a manner of speaking. What does that mean? It means you need to stay awake. I wanted to believe there was a simple explanation. Maybe another driver was behind me with a better view. Maybe he had seen my truck number at the yard. Maybe he knew my name from the manifest. or from somebody at dispatch, or from a loading dock where people talked too much. But then he said, "How were the chips?" I stopped breathing for a second. The road noise filled the cab. "What did you say?" "The barbecue ones. From the truck stop. You got crumbs on your shirt." I looked down. There were crumbs on my grey company shirt. Small orange flecks, right across my chest. I brushed them off with my palm like that would make what he said less real. I had eaten those chips alone in the cab after fueling. No one had stood near my window. No one had been parked beside me. The receipt was in my cup holder. The wrapper was in the trash bag behind the passenger seat. Nobody should have known that. A pressure spread across my shoulders. Not panic, exactly. Something closer to being watched from inside your own life. I turned the CB volume down. Then I turned it back up, because as much as that voice scared me, it had kept me out of two bad situations already. That was how he got me. Not all at once. A little trust at a time. For the next hour, he became part of the cab. He didn't talk constantly. Sometimes, 10 minutes passed with nothing but static and rain, and the sound of tires hissing over wet pavement. Then he would say something, just before I needed it. "Left lane, deer on the shoulder." A few seconds later, a doe bolted from the trees, slipped on the wet pavement, and scrambled back into the ditch as I passed, back down before the bridge. I slowed, and a sheet of standing water stretched across the right lane under the overpass. Any faster and I might have hydroplaned the steer tires. "Don't answer that call." My phone rang right after he said it. Unknown number. One bar had returned for just long enough to let the call through. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. The voicemail came through a minute later, but when I tried to play it, the phone said it couldn't connect. I asked him how he knew. He didn't answer. I asked again, static. Then, quietly, because I answered mine. That line bothered me more than anything else he had said up to that point. It sounded personal. It sounded like regret. By then, I had crossed into Alabama. The rain had thinned into a mist, but the night felt heavier. The highway was emptier than it should have been. No late commuters, no state troopers, almost no trucks, just my headlights and the reflective lane markers streaming at me out of the dark. Dispatch finally got through around 3:20. My dispatcher, Carla, sounded annoyed before I even said hello. "Aaron, why are you running slow?" I blinked at the phone. I had it on speaker, sitting in the dash cradle. "What? You're behind your projected time. Customers already asking for an ETA. I had weather and a wreck outside's Meridian." "What wreck?" "The one blocking both lanes. Pickup and a flatbed." There was a pause on the line, followed by keyboard clicking. "I'm not seeing anything reported." It was fresh. No emergency lights yet. "All right. Well, don't stop unless you have to. They want that load checked in before 6. Something about the way she said, "Don't stop," made me look at the CB. The speaker was silent. "Carla," I said, "did you give my truck number or route to anybody tonight?" "What kind of question is that?" "Just answer me." "No." "Why? Any other driver from our company near me?" More clicking. "Not close." "You've got Langford about 90 miles ahead and Markham still back near Jackson." "Why?" I almost told her. Then I imagined saying, "A man on the CB knows what I ate and keeps warning me about things before they happen." And I knew exactly how that would sound. "Just weird radio chatter," I said. "Turn it off if it's distracting you." The CB crackled right then. The voice said, "Don't." Carla heard it through the phone speaker. "Who was that?" she asked. I stared at the radio. "You heard that?" "I heard somebody say don't." The voice came through again, louder. "Carla can't help you." My dispatcher went quiet. Then she said, "Aaron." "Who is that?" I grabbed the mic, but before I could talk, the voice said, "Tell her to check the 2018 incident report. Mile marker 133. Carla didn't say anything. I could hear her breathing on the other end. "Carla, I need you to pull into the next safe place," she said. The tone in her voice had changed. No more annoyance. No more delivery pressure. What incident report? I asked. Pull into the next safe place and call me back from there. What happened at mile marker 133? The call dropped. I hit redial. No service. The CB hissed. You shouldn't have asked her, the voice said. I felt anger come up then. Anger helped because fear was starting to make me stupid. Who are you? No answer. I slapped the steering wheel with my palm. Who are you? A long stretch of static followed. And he said, name was Daniel Reeves. Was, not is. I repeated it out loud without meaning to. Daniel Reeves. Most folks called me Reeve. Where are you? Trying to keep you from doing what I did. Ahead, a green sign announced a way station 2 miles up. I knew that station. It sat between long patches of pine woods, and half the time it was closed. That night, the yellow lights over the ramp were flashing. Open, the voice said, bypass it. I looked at the sign. That's an open way station. Bypass it. I can't just blow a station. You can if the sign isn't real. That made no sense, but I was already watching closely. The ramp lights flashed. The little roadside sign said, trucks enter. When flashing, everything looked official. Still, something was off. There were no other trucks lined up, no glow from inside the scale house, no state vehicles parked out front, no silhouettes moving behind the windows. The CB speaker popped. Look at the flag. I glanced toward the pole beside the scale house. There was a flag hanging limp in the damp air, only it wasn't the state flag. It wasn't even attached right. It looked like a rectangular piece of dark cloth tied to the halyard, moving slightly in the rain. I eased into the left lane. My heart was pounding now. The ramp passed on my right. As I rolled by, the lights over the entrance stopped flashing all at once. The station went dark, and in the parking lot behind the scale house, 3 sets of headlights came on. They didn't move at first. They just faced the highway. Then one of them pulled forward fast. I hit the throttle. The trailer was heavy enough to complain, but the Cascadia dug in. The speed climbed from 58 to 65, then 68. A pickup shot out of the way station ramp behind me. No roof lights, no state markings, just a black pickup with a push bar on the front and one headlight brighter than the other. The CB voice stayed calm. Don't let them get beside you. My mouth was so dry I could barely talk. How many? 3 total. Pickup behind you. SUV will try the left. Van is waiting 5 miles ahead. I checked the left mirror. At first, nothing. Then, headlights appeared around the curve, behind the pickup, moving faster. I felt the whole situation narrow down to lane position, speed, and distance. All the fear got pushed behind the part of my brain that knew how to drive. I kept the truck centered in the right lane. Not drifting, not jerking the wheel. The pickup closed behind the trailer and moved left like it wanted to peek around. I eased left just enough to make that uncomfortable without crossing the line. The SUV came hard in the passing lane. Dark windows, no plates visible. It reached the back of my trailer, then hung. There, where I couldn't see the front bumper anymore. Brake check will get you killed, Reeves said. I wasn't going to. You thought about it. I hated that he was right. The SUV crept up along my left side. I couldn't see inside. Rain streaked the window, and the glare of their own headlights bounced through the mirrors. Whoever was driving held the vehicle just behind my cab, exactly where they could make me nervous without giving me a clear look. Then my phone rang again. Unknown number, the voice said. Do not answer. The SUV matched my speed. The pickup stayed behind the trailer. The phone kept ringing. I let it go. A voicemail notification popped up a few seconds later. Then a text. It was from an unknown number. The message read, Lily is safe if you pull over. For 1 second, everything in me went hollow, not because I believed it, because they knew her name. I almost reached for the phone. My hand actually moved off the wheel. Reeves' voice snapped through the CB. Don't look down again. I put both hands back on the wheel. How do they know her name? I said. Same way they knew mine. The SUV drifted closer to my lane. I drifted right as far as I safely could without putting the trailer on the shoulder. The pickup behind me flashed its high beams. The road ahead dipped through a dark stretch with trees close on both sides. No houses, no exit, no shoulder worth using. "Van is ahead," Reeves said. "I don't see it." "You will." A half-mile later, I did. White van, parked crooked on the right shoulder. Hazard lights blinking. One rear door open. A person stood beside it, waving a flashlight. From a distance, it looked like a breakdown. Then the flashlight beam aimed straight at my windshield and didn't move. "Left lane," Reeves said. "The SUV is there. Make room." I checked my mirror. The SUV was still beside the trailer, but hadn't fully reached the cab. I didn't have a clean move. The van was getting closer. The person with the flashlight stepped farther into the lane. I laid on the air horn. Sound tore through the cab and rolled into the trees. The person didn't move. The SUV tried to surge forward. I tapped the brakes just enough to let the trailer settle backward, then accelerated as the SUV's timing changed. It shot ahead a little too far, and for 1 second the passing lane opened behind it. I took it. The Cascadia moved left with the trailer, following, heavy behind me. The pickup behind me swerved, its headlights cutting wild across the mirror. The person by the van jumped back, and I passed close enough that the flashlight beam slid across my side window. I saw his face for less than a second. Not a stranded driver. A man in a dark raincoat, wearing black gloves, holding something long at his side. I was past him before I could tell what it was. The SUV ahead braked hard. That was the next move. Box me in from the front while the pickup came up behind. Reeves said, "Exit in 1 mile. Take it." "There's no exit here." "There is." I saw nothing but wet pavement and trees. Then, out of the rain, a small green sign appeared on the right. County Road 11. I didn't know that road. I didn't like unknown roads at night, especially with a trailer behind me and people trying to stop me. But the SUV was slowing, and the pickup was close enough that I could see its grille in the mirror. I hit the signal out of habit. Reeves said no signal. I turned it off and took the exit late harder than I liked. The trailer leaned. My stomach rose. The tires hissed over the ramp as the truck swung right onto a 2-lane county road with no lights and no center reflectors. Behind me, the pickup missed the turn and kept going straight. The SUV tried to cut across the gore, fishtailed on the wet pavement, and disappeared behind the trees. For a few minutes, there was only the truck and the road. I wanted to feel relief, but county roads at night have their own kind of darkness. No shoulders, no businesses, just ditches and tree lines pressing close to the white edge markings. My GPS recalculated, then froze. The screen showed my arrow, floating in a grey space with no road under it. The CB crackled. "You're going to see a church on the right. Gravel lot. Pull in there." "I thought you said don't stop." "Pull in where there are lights." "There aren't any lights." "There will be." I was too far in to argue. 2 miles later, a small white church appeared beyond the trees. At first it was dark. Then, as my headlights swung over it, a floodlight clicked on above the entrance and washed the gravel lot in pale yellow. I pulled in slow, parked with my nose facing out, set the brakes and kept the engine running. The CB went quiet. I waited. Rain ticked against the windshield. The floodlight buzzed. My phone still had no service. "Reeve," I said into the mic. Static. "Daniel?" Nothing. I sat there for maybe 5 minutes, watching the road through the windshield, waiting for headlights to appear. None did. Then my phone suddenly got 2 bars. I called 911 first. I told the operator I was a commercial driver, being followed by several vehicles. Possible attempted hijacking, possible fake way station setup. I gave her the county road, the church name from the sign, my truck number, my company, everything. Then I called Carla. She answered on the first ring. "Aaron, where are you?" "At some church off County Road 11. Police are coming." Now tell me what happened in 2018. She didn't answer right away. I heard office noise behind her. Phones, a printer, somebody talking. Finally, she said, I shouldn't have reacted like that while you were driving. Carla, another pause. Mile marker 133 was a wrecking one of our subcontractors before I worked here. Driver named Daniel Reeves. He was hauling pharmaceuticals to Birmingham. His truck went off the road after missing a way station. My hand tightened around the phone. Was it raining? I don't know. What happened to him? The tractor burned. Trailer was opened. Cargo missing. I stared at the dark road beyond the church lot. And Daniel? Carla's voice dropped. They never found his body. I looked at the CB radio. The speaker was silent. Police showed up about 12 minutes later. A county deputy first, then a state trooper. The trooper was older, maybe late 50s, with a face that looked like it had spent too many years behind windshield glare. He listened carefully, took notes, checked the damage to my story against what he could find. Over the radio, they didn't find the fake way station lit anymore. The real station at that location had been closed for renovations for almost 2 years. The flashing ramp lights I saw were not supposed to be working. When another trooper drove past, the whole place was dark, gates chained. No vehicles in the lot. They did find tire marks near the exit. They found a white van abandoned 7 miles east of the station, wiped clean except for mud and a pair of bolt cutters. They did not find the pickup or the SUV. I told the trooper about the CB voice because by then I was too shaken to care how it sounded. He didn't laugh. That was what made it worse. He asked me to repeat the name. Daniel Reeves, I said. The trooper looked down at his notebook, but he wasn't writing anymore. Then he said, You sure about that? I told him I was. He looked toward my truck, then back at me. Daniel Reeves crashed not far from here 6 years ago. Same kind of weather, same hour of the night. His rig was found burned down to the frame. Cargo gone, driver's door open. I heard his voice, I said. The trooper nodded slowly, like he was choosing what not to say. His body was never recovered. I asked if he thought Daniel had been part of whatever crew tried to stop me. The trooper said no. He said if Daniel Reeves was alive, he would have been almost 70 by then. He said there had never been a confirmed sighting. No bank activity, no license renewal, no medical record, no arrest, nothing. Then he added something he probably shouldn't have. He said I wasn't the first driver to mention a voice on Channel 19 near that stretch of highway. Not many, but a few. Always at night, always in bad weather, always warning them right before something went wrong. I finished the route after sunrise with a police escort for part of the way, and a company safety manager talking in my ear like that would make me feel better. The delivery was real. The seal was intact. The distribution center had no idea anything had happened. Carla apologized more than once. The company changed our routing rules after that. No more running that specific stretch during overnight storms. No stopping at closed stations. Any unexpected way station activity had to be verified with state dispatch. I wish that was the end of it. For a few weeks, I kept the CB turned off unless I absolutely needed it. Then one night, maybe a month later, I was parked at a Flying J outside Montgomery, filling out my log and trying to talk myself into sleeping. The lot was crowded, bright lights, drivers walking dogs, engines idling all around me. Nothing isolated, nothing dangerous. I reached behind the passenger seat for a bottle of water and found a barbecue chip wrapper tucked halfway under the sleeper curtain. I hadn't bought that brand since Mississippi. It was empty, folded into a neat little square. On the back, someone had written in black marker, "Tell Lily," I said, "keep singing." I never told anyone on the CB that my daughter sang in her school choir, not once. And when I turned the radio on, Channel 19 was nothing but static. The next story came from a driver who still refuses to cross certain parts of Wyoming before sunrise. Not because of bad weather, not because of the grades, because for 4 hours he thought he was safer in a convoy. Story 2. The empty convoy. I first saw the 3 semis, about 20 miles west of Rawlins, Wyoming, at a little after 2 in the morning. At that distance, they looked like the answer to a prayer. 3 sets of red trailer lights moving steady through the dark, spaced almost perfectly, running the same speed I was trying to run. After nearly 2 hours of empty interstate, crosswinds, and nothing but my own thoughts pushing around the cab, I remember saying out loud, "Finally, some company." That was before I noticed. They all had the same logo, same trailers, same spacing, same speed, and not one of them ever answered the radio. My name is Wes Harlan. I was 38 when this happened, driving a Kenworth T680, leased to a refrigerated carrier out of Omaha. I had been trucking for 9 years. At that point, mostly food service and reefer loads. The kind of freight that has to stay cold, has to arrive on time, and always seems to be scheduled for the worst weather window possible. This was in early February, deep winter, though that night wasn't snowing. That almost made it worse. If it had been a blizzard, I would have had something obvious to blame for how strange everything felt. Instead, the sky was clear, the moon was thin, and the wind kept shoving at the side of my trailer, like a huge animal trying to nudge me off the lane. I had picked up a frozen load in Salt Lake City, mostly boxed poultry and prepared meals, headed for a grocery distribution center outside Cheyenne. My reefer was holding at -10. My fuel was good. My EL said I had enough hours to make it close if nothing went wrong. But everything felt lonely that night. That stretch of I-80 can do that to you. People who don't drive it think interstate means safe. Big road, lots of lanes, plenty of traffic. But there are pieces of Wyoming where the dark feels wider than the road, where towns show up as a smear of light and then disappear behind you, and suddenly you realize help could be 30 or 40 miles away in either direction. I had stopped once near Rock Springs for fuel and coffee. The fuel island was nearly empty, just one livestock hauler and a tanker parked under lights that buzzed in the cold. Inside, the clerk was watching a small TV behind the counter with the sound off. I bought coffee, a breakfast sandwich that had been under the heat lamp too long, and a pack of cinnamon gum to keep myself awake. Before I left, I checked the trailer seal, kicked the tires, listened to the reefer cycle, then climbed back into the cab and called my wife, Trina. She hated when I ran Wyoming at night. "Wind bad?" she asked. "Manageable. That means bad. It means I'm awake." She laughed softly, but I could hear worry under it. We had a 6-year-old boy at home then, and she always tried not to make me feel guilty about missing things. But I could hear him in the background, asking if I was bringing him a snow globe. I told her I'd look for one in Cheyenne. That was the last normal conversation I had for the next several hours. After Rawlins, traffic thinned until it was almost nothing. A few cars passed westbound. One flatbed passed me going east and disappeared ahead. Then even that was gone. The CB had occasional static, but no real talk. I called out once about the wind on the open flats. Nobody responded. Not unusual at that hour, but still, I didn't like how dead the band felt. Then, climbing a long grade, with the engine working steady, I saw 3 semis ahead of me. They were maybe a mile up the road, just close enough that their marker lights made a little red chain in the dark. I relaxed. I won't pretend I didn't. Being behind other trucks at night can make you feel less exposed. You still have to drive your own rig, still watch your own lane. But there's comfort in knowing somebody else is out there dealing with the same road, same wind, same black hills on both sides. I eased up to match them. 62 miles an hour, not fast for that road, but with the wind, it was sensible. As I got closer, I could see the trailers better in my headlights. White reefers, blue stripe near the bottom, a simple mountain-shaped logo on the rear doors, Madsen Cold Freight. I didn't know the company, but that didn't mean much. There are plenty of small refrigerated outfits running regional lanes. What caught my attention was that all 3 trailers looked identical. Not just same company paint, same level of wear, same reflective tape pattern, same dirt sprayed up the back doors. Even the small black scuffs near the bumper looked similar, from truck to truck. I told myself that was because they were company trailers running together. Maybe a team route, maybe a group hauling for the same customer. Still, I keyed the mic. Eastbound Madsen convoy, you got a copy? Static. I tried again. Eastbound Madsen, this is the Kenworth behind you. How's the road up ahead? Nothing. The trucks held their spacing. The first one was farthest out. The second maybe 4 truck lengths behind. The third, another 4 lengths behind that. They didn't drift, didn't speed up on the downhill, didn't slow much on the uphill. Their brake lights never flashed. I joined at the back, leaving plenty of distance. At first, it felt good. That's the part I hate admitting. For the first half hour, I was grateful for them. They cut a path through the dark. Their lights gave me something to focus on, besides the empty road. When the wind shoved hard, I could see how the last trailer reacted and prepare myself a second before it hit me. It felt like following footprints through deep snow, even though the pavement was clear. We passed a rest area, closed, orange cones across the ramp. That didn't bother me. Rest areas close. Wyoming winters beat up roads and facilities all the time. 10 miles later, we passed a truck stop sign. The sign was lit, but the lot beyond it was dark. No canopy lights, no fuel price board, no parked trucks. I remembered that place being open the last time I came through. Small but open. I checked my GPS. The truck stop wasn't listed. That was odd. I zoomed out. The map lagged, then corrected itself, showing me on I-80 eastbound, exactly where I should be. But the next fuel stop it listed was much farther ahead than I expected. I keyed the mic again. Madsen drivers, anybody awake up there? No answer. I switched to another channel, then back to 19 static. Only static. The trucks never changed speed. Around 3 a.m., I noticed the first real problem. We should have been approaching a more populated stretch by then. Not city lights exactly, but something. A maintenance yard, a ranch house, a cell tower, another exit. Instead, the road stayed bare and black, running through low hills that didn't look quite right. Wyoming has a look at night. You learn it after enough miles. The shape of the hills, the fence lines, the way distant lights sit low and scattered. This place looked close to that, but not exact. Like someone had remembered Wyoming badly. I rubbed my eyes and blamed fatigue. That's what a sensible person does first. They don't jump to ghosts, they check themselves. I sat up straighter, opened the vent to let cold air blow on my face, and took a drink of coffee. I checked the dash. Reefer temperature steady, oil pressure normal, fuel just under half, speed 62. The 3 trucks ahead stayed perfect. Too perfect. No one touched a brake, no one adjusted lane position, no one drifted toward the shoulder and corrected. The lead truck didn't pull away on downhills or slow on grades. It was like watching a video loop. I decided to test them. I eased off the throttle and dropped back. The gap widened slowly. 100 yards, 200, a quarter mile. The convoy continued at 62 unchanged. That should have made me feel better. It didn't, because as soon as I brought my speed back up, I returned to the exact same distance behind the third truck. As if I had never dropped back at all. I don't mean close enough, I mean exact. Same view of the left rear mud flap, same angle on the bumper, same little black smear under the logo. I frowned and looked at the speedometer. 62. I pushed to 68. The convoy got closer for maybe 10 seconds. Then it didn't. Without any brake lights, without any visible change, the 3 trucks were suddenly holding at the same distance as before. I backed off. My truck returned to 62 almost on its own because my foot came off the pedal. Nope, I said to the empty cab. I grabbed the mic. Any eastbound drivers around mile marker? I stopped because I didn't know the mile marker. I looked for one. None appeared. I waited. A green mile marker should show up every mile. Reflective, hard to miss. There was nothing. No signs at all. Now that I was really looking. No exit signs. No speed limit signs. No warnings about grades or wind. Just pavement, lane lines, and the 3 sets of lights ahead. I checked my GPS again. The screen had gone blank, except for the spinning recalculating icon. My phone showed no service. That wasn't unusual in pieces of Wyoming, but with the radio dead and the signs gone, it felt like being sealed inside a room shaped like a highway. I considered pulling over. That was my first instinct. Get away from them. Stop. Let them disappear. Wait for another real truck or a state trooper or at least daylight. But the shoulders had changed. They were now barely more than a strip of broken asphalt before the ground dropped into dark ditch. There were no ramps, no pull-offs, no wide spots. Just enough space to be stranded, but not enough to be safe. And maybe this sounds strange, but I didn't want the convoy behind me. As long as they were ahead, I could see them, so I kept following. That's how these things get you, I think. They don't have to force you. They just make every other choice feel worse. Another hour passed, though I can't fully prove that. The dash clock said it was 4:07. Then later it said 4:07 again. At some point, it jumped to 4:19. Remember, because I kept checking, trying to reassure myself time was still moving. The road remained empty. Every exit we passed, if they were exits at all, had closed signs or dark ramps blocked by gates I didn't remember from the interstate. One fuel stop had all its lights on, but no vehicles, no people, and a sign in the window I could somehow read from the highway, even though we were moving. Closed for season. Truck stops don't close for season. Not on an interstate. Not all of them. I tried the radio again. Anybody copy? This is eastbound Kenworth behind 3 Madsen cold freight trucks. I need a radio check. Static. Then, for the first time all night, something came through. Not a voice, a tone. 3 short bursts. Beep, beep, then static again. The third truck's left signal came on. My heart jumped. Not because a signal should be scary, because it was the first human-like action any of those trucks had made. The second truck's left signal came on, then the first. All 3 blinked together, tick, tick, tick. There was no exit visible. Still, the convoy moved into the left lane in perfect sequence. Lead truck first, then second, then third. I stayed right. I was not going wherever they were going. A few seconds later, headlights appeared ahead in my lane. Wrong direction, far away at first, then growing fast. I cursed and grabbed the wheel. It looked like a vehicle was coming straight at me. Except there was no westbound lane. There was only my lane, my headlights, and those 2 white lights rushing toward me. I had nowhere to go but left. The convoy had left the lane open. I moved left behind the 3rd Madsen truck, just as the oncoming lights shot past on my right. For half a second I saw the vehicle, a station wagon, old, brown, roof caved in. No driver visible behind the windshield. Then it was gone in my mirror, swallowed by black. The convoy returned to the right lane, so did I. I was shaking now, not a little, full tremor in both hands, the kind you feel in your forearms. I had no explanation for what had just happened. Wrong-way drivers happen. Drunks, medical emergencies, confused old people on ramps. But there had been no ramp. No headlights behind the station wagon after it passed. No taillights, no vehicle continuing down the road. Just there. Then gone. The CB clicked. 3 short tones again. Beep, beep, beep. The convoy kept going. I don't know how long I followed after that. Long enough that fear became something duller and heavier. My mind started making bargains. Just stay with them until dawn. Just wait for sunlight. Just don't make any sudden choices in the dark. At some point, I realized I still hadn't seen the drivers. That thought arrived quietly and then filled the cab. I had been behind them for hours. We had passed through open stretches, slight curves, grades, areas where my headlights swept across the side mirrors of the third truck. I should have caught a shape, an elbow, a hat, a reflection, something moving in the cab. But I had seen nothing. The side mirrors reflected only darkness. No faces, no hands on wheels, no glow from dashboard screens. Even their exhaust looked wrong. In that cold, there should have been some visible plume under the right conditions, some sign of heat and diesel and engine work. Their stacks showed nothing. The trucks were there, but they did not feel occupied. I pushed the mic button. One more time, not expecting an answer, just needing to hear myself talk. "Madsen, I'm backing off. You boys have a safe ride." The CB answered instantly with the same 3 tones. Beep, beep, beep. Then the third truck's brake lights came on. So did the second, so did the first, all at once. I hit my brakes and the trailer tugged hard behind me. The convoy slowed from 62 to 50, then 40, then 35. No hazard lights, no shoulder, no reason. I thought about passing. I looked left. There was a passing lane now. I hadn't noticed it appear. I checked my mirror, empty. I moved over and started to pass the third semi. As I came alongside its trailer, my headlights caught the logo up close. Madsen Cold Freight. Under the mountain shape, in smaller letters, was a slogan. "We bring it home." I had never seen that slogan before. Something about it made me feel sick. I crept up alongside the cab. The window was dark, too dark. Not tinted, empty dark, like there was no interior at all behind the glass. I leaned forward, trying to catch the driver's seat. In the glow of my own dash and passing headlights, the seat was there. No driver, no one. The steering wheel turned slightly on its own to follow the curve of the road. I jerked my eyes forward and almost drifted. The second truck was ahead of me now. I kept accelerating, breathing too fast, telling myself not to stop, not to think, not to let panic put me in the ditch. When I came alongside the second cab, I did not look. I couldn't, but something moved in my passenger side peripheral vision, a shape behind the glass. I forced myself to glance. The driver's seat was empty, but a handprint appeared on the inside of the passenger window, pale, small, a child's hand. It pressed flat against the glass, fingers spread, then slid downward out of sight. I shouted and swerved. Left, caught it, corrected, and nearly hit the median barrier that had appeared where there had been open dark a second earlier. The CB filled with static. Under it, faint but clear, I heard children laughing. Then a woman crying. Then the 3 tones. Beep, beep. The lead truck was just ahead. I pushed the Kenworth harder. 60, 65, 70. For the first time all night, the convoy fell behind. I passed the lead cab without looking, merged right, and kept going. In the mirror, the 3 Madsen trucks stayed in formation, growing smaller. Then they were gone, not fading around a curve, not disappearing behind a hill. Gone. The road ahead changed again. Signs returned. A mile marker flashed by, exit sign, wind advisory board. The GPS blinked back on with a sharp little chime that made me jump. I was still on I-80, but I was much farther east than I should have been, almost impossibly far. My phone exploded with missed call notifications from Trina and dispatch. The clock now said 6:11 a.m. The eastern sky was just starting to lighten. I should have pulled into the next open truck stop and called somebody. Instead, I kept driving because daylight was coming and the road looked normal again. That sounds stupid now, but at the time I felt like stopping would give the night a chance to catch up. Then I saw them, the 3 semis, about a mile ahead. Same red lights, same spacing, same speed. My foot came off the throttle. "No," I said. The dawn had turned the horizon grey. Details were easier to see now. The land opened wide on both sides, and far ahead, the convoy signalled right, all 3 trucks. Together. There was an exit there, but not a normal one. No green interstate sign, no services sign. Just a narrow ramp leading down to a 2-lane road that disappeared into pale grassland. The trucks exited. I should have kept going. I know that. I have replayed this part more times than any other. I should have stayed on the interstate, found people, called police, called dispatch, called my wife, called anybody. But I had followed them for 4 hours. They had saved me from a wrong-way vehicle, or led me to it, depending on how you look at it, and they were real enough to leave my sight. I needed to know what they were. That need was stronger than fear for about 10 seconds, long enough to ruin me. I took the exit. The ramp curved down onto a cracked 2-lane road with no markings. Dry grass scraped the shoulder. The convoy rolled ahead, maybe half a mile out now. Their trailers kicking up no dust, even though the road surface looked sandy and broken. My GPS showed no road at all, just my arrow moving through empty beige land. I slowed down but didn't stop. The road led toward a low line of hills. Beyond them, I could see the shapes of old buildings against the dawn. A water tower with no tank, a few collapsed wooden structures, the dark rectangle of what might have been a mine entrance cut into the hillside. An abandoned mining town. The 3 trucks turned off the road before the town, onto a dirt track that curved behind a hill. One by one, they disappeared. First truck, second, third. I rolled to the turn and stopped. For the first time since seeing them, I set the brakes. The air hissed loud in the cab. The world outside was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. After hours of engine noise, dawn wind moved through the grass. The reefer hummed behind me. Somewhere far off, metal creaked. I stared at the dirt track. No dust, no fresh marks. That's what finally broke whatever hold curiosity had on me. 3 loaded semis had just turned onto that dirt road in front of me. There should have been tire tracks. Deep ones, clear ones. There were none, not one. The dirt was smooth except for old wind ripples and a few animal prints. I sat there with my foot hovering over the brake, brain refusing to accept what my eyes were seeing. Then my CB clicked, not static, a voice, small and far away. A child said, "Daddy, are we home?" I threw the truck into gear so hard I heard the transmission complain. The moment I started backing away, something moved in the old town ahead. Not a person exactly, a shape in one of the broken windows, then another in the doorway of a collapsed building, then more, standing still, watching. I didn't wait to understand them. I backed that Kenworth all the way onto the road, almost putting the trailer in the ditch, then got turned around and headed back for the interstate, with the engine roaring and my hands sweating on the wheel. The whole way back, I checked the mirror, expecting to see the Madsen trucks emerge behind me. They never did. When I reached I-80, traffic was normal. A FedEx truck passed eastbound. A pickup with frost on the hood came down the ramp. A state plow sat parked near a maintenance gate, even though there wasn't any snow on the road. Normal life had returned like nothing had happened. I pulled into the next open truck stop near Laramie and parked under the brightest lights I could find. I called Trina first. She cried when she heard my voice, then got mad, then cried again. Dispatch thought I had gone off route because my tracker had dropped for hours and reappeared farther east. They blamed equipment malfunction until I showed them the dash cam. The dash cam had recorded the road. It recorded the empty interstate. It recorded me talking to myself. But it did not record the convoy. For 4 hours, the footage showed nothing ahead of me, just empty pavement. At the moment where I swerved to avoid the wrong-way station wagon, the video showed me changing lanes for no visible reason. At the abandoned town exit, the camera did show the ramp. It showed the cracked road. It showed me stopping at the dirt turn. But when I zoomed in later, the town beyond the hills looked different from what I remembered. More collapsed, older, as if nobody had stood there in a very long time. I reported everything to the company. Because the off-route time had to be explained somehow, they sent a safety manager to check the truck, the ailed, the camera, The tracker, everything. Nothing was wrong except for one thing. The reefer unit had logged a door-open event at 4:07 a.m., but my trailer seal was intact. The doors were locked, and I had never stopped. A week later, I started digging. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. Sometimes answers are worse than not knowing. There had been a company called Madsen Cold Freight. Small outfit, family-owned, ran refrigerated loads through Wyoming and Colorado years back. They went under after a major accident in winter. 3 company trucks, traveling together in bad weather, had exited the interstate during a closure and taken an old service road. Reports said they were trying to reach shelter or maybe turn around. They ended up near an abandoned mining town. The lead truck went through a weak bridge or washout. The other 2 followed too close to stop. All 3 rigs were destroyed. Several people died. Drivers, 1 mechanic riding along, and a dispatcher's family who had been in a company pickup traveling with them. A woman and a child were listed among the dead. The article said recovery teams had trouble finding the exact site because heavy wind erased the tracks by morning. I don't know if what I saw was them. I don't know if they were trying to warn me, lead me, or make me part of whatever happened to them. I only know I stopped running nights across Wyoming after that. The company offered me more money for those lanes. I said no every time. There's one last part I haven't told many people. 3 months after it happened, my son was playing with toy trucks on the living room floor while I was packing for a daytime run. He had never heard the full story. Trina and I made sure of that. He lined up 3 white toy trailers in a row, all perfectly spaced. Then he looked up at me and said, "Dad, the cold trucks said you forgot my snow globe." I asked him what cold trucks. He pointed toward the hallway window, the one facing the street. By the time I looked, there was nothing outside, but on the glass, fading in the morning warmth, were 3 small handprints. The final story is the one that bothered me the most, because every driver knows the sleeper cab is supposed to be the one place on the road that still belongs to you. For this man, even that stopped being true. The first night, I thought I dreamed it. That's the part I keep coming back to. I woke up during my 10-hour break because I heard movement behind me in the sleeper. A soft shifting sound like fabric brushing against fabric. I was half asleep, parked in a rest area off I-70 in eastern Indiana, and for a few seconds I didn't remember where I was. Then the cab settled around me. Dash lights dimmed low, reefer humming somewhere across the lot, rain tapping on the roof, and from the sleeper, inches behind my head, I heard someone breathe. "My name is Calvin Brooks. I'm 46, been driving trucks for just over 20 years, mostly solo. I've run dry van, flatbed, reefer, dedicated lanes, all of it. At the time this happened, I was in a Volvo VNL, pulling a 53-foot dry van for a logistics company out of St. Louis. I had been divorced for a long time, no kids, no pets, no passenger seat full of family photos. My truck was my apartment most weeks. Some guys treat the cab like a locker room. Mine was clean. Coffee maker strapped down, small microwave, spare boots under the bunk, a duffel bag with clothes, a little plastic drawer set for receipts, meds, flashlight, gloves, all the boring stuff that makes road life manageable. I knew where everything was. That matters. When you live in a space that's small, you know if a coffee stirrer moved. That week started with a load out of Kansas City headed to a home improvement distribution center near Pittsburgh. Palletized hardware, power tool accessories, boxes of fasteners, nothing especially valuable compared to electronics or pharmaceuticals, but enough that the trailer was sealed and the customer cared about delivery windows. It was late September. Nights were getting cooler, the kind of season where truck stops smell like wet pavement, diesel, and burned coffee, and every driver you see looks like he's trying to outrun winter before it catches him. I picked up the trailer just after noon, checked the bill of lading, verified the seal number, did my pre-trip, and rolled east. The first day was easy. I made good time through Missouri and Illinois, stopped for fuel near Terre Haute, and planned to take my 10-hour break at a rest area before Indianapolis so I could clear traffic early. The rest area was busy enough to feel safe but not packed. A few semis, 2 RVs, a state maintenance truck parked near the building. Lights worked, cameras on poles, nothing sketchy. I backed into a spot under a lamp, shut down, did a quick walk around, checked the seal on the trailer, and climbed back in. Before sleeping, I did what I always do. Locked both doors, checked the passenger side, pulled the curtains, set my phone alarm, laid my flashlight on the shelf by the bunk. No alcohol, no sleep meds, nothing that would make me fuzzy. Just tired from a long shift, which is different. Sometime around 3 in the morning, I woke to that movement in the sleeper. I was lying on my side facing the back wall, and for 1 second, I was absolutely sure someone was behind me. Not outside the cab, inside. I held still. The sound stopped. I listened hard enough to hear my own heartbeat. The rain on the roof made a soft ticking noise. A truck nearby idled rough. Somewhere outside, air brakes hissed. Normal rest area sounds. Then the bunk shifted, just a little, like weight had moved at the edge of it. I sat up so fast, I smacked my shoulder against the cabinet. My hand went straight to the flashlight, and I swept it across the sleeper. Nothing, no person, no open cabinets, no curtain moving. The cab doors were locked. The sleeper windows were latched. The passenger seat was empty. I stayed awake for almost 20 minutes. Flashlight in one hand, pocket knife in the other, feeling embarrassed and scared at the same time. Eventually, I convinced myself it was a dream. Maybe a muscle twitch. Maybe another truck parking too close and shaking my cab. Maybe my brain mixed outside noises into sleep. That's what I told myself, because the alternative was impossible. The next morning, my coffee mug had moved. It was a stainless mug with a dent near the bottom, and I always kept it in the driver's side cup holder. That morning, it was in the passenger side holder, turned so the handle faced the wrong way. I stared at it longer than anyone should stare at a mug. Then I laughed once, because what else do you do? Getting old, I said. I blamed myself. Maybe I had moved it while half asleep. Maybe I had cleaned up before bed and didn't remember. That happens on the road. You run enough miles, days blur, habits become automatic. Sometimes you can drive through a whole small town and barely remember it because your brain filed it under routine. At the delivery outside Pittsburgh, everything checked out, seal intact, freight accepted. No shortage, no damage. I spent the rest of the day taking a new load assignment. Empty miles up to a warehouse near Cleveland, then a sealed trailer full of packaged food headed to North Carolina. The second night, I parked at a truck stop in southern Ohio. Busier place, bright lights, fuel island active all night. I remember choosing that stop on purpose because the rest area dream still bothered me. I parked nose out near a row of other trucks, bought soup and coffee inside, watched a little video on my phone, then turned in. Again, I locked both doors. Again, I checked the sleeper. I even looked under the bunk, which felt ridiculous. There was nothing under there but a case of bottled water, spare straps, and my tool bag. I slept badly. At 4:12 a.m., I woke because something clicked. Not loud, a small plastic click, like the passenger seat belt being touched. I opened my eyes but didn't move. The cab was dark, except for the faint green glow from the dash. The sleeper curtain was partly open, maybe 2 inches. I never left it partly open. Through the gap, I could see the passenger seat. It was facing forward. Then slowly, the seat reclined back 1 notch. Click. I couldn't make myself move. I wish I could tell you. I jumped up brave and ready, but I didn't. I lay there with my mouth open, every muscle locked, watching the top edge of that seat settle in the dark. There was no one in it, at least no one I could see from that angle. I reached for my flashlight without looking. My hand touched the shelf. Empty. The flashlight wasn't there. That broke the freeze. I lunged forward, ripped the curtain open, and slapped the dome light switch. The cab flooded with yellow light. No one. The passenger seat was reclined. My flashlight was on the floorboard in front of it. My glove box was closed. Doors locked, windows shut. No sign of forced entry. I checked outside. Nothing but trucks, wet pavement, and a guy walking a dog near the grass strip. I got dressed and stayed awake until sunrise. At first light, I did the most thorough inspection of my life. Cab, sleeper, cabinets, underbunk, side compartments, engine bay, frame, trailer doors, landing gear, everything. I checked the trailer seal, still intact. I looked at the fifth wheel plate and behind the fairings. I even opened my tool bag, like maybe a grown man had folded himself inside it. Nothing. The only thing wrong was the passenger seat and the missing food. I noticed that later. When I reached for the protein bar I had left on the little shelf behind the driver's seat, it was gone. So was half a sleeve of crackers from my snack bin. Not the cash in my wallet, not the loose change, not my company fuel card, not the tablet mount, not my headset, not anything worth stealing. Food. A person had been in my cab and taken food, or I was losing my mind. That second possibility scared me almost as badly. Truckers don't like admitting when something feels wrong inside their own head. Your whole job depends on being alert and stable. If I told dispatch I thought someone invisible was moving things in my cab at night, they'd pull me out of service until I got evaluated. Maybe they should have, but at the time I had bills and nothing had happened that I could prove, so I made rules. I bought 2 cheap rubber door wedges and jammed them under the cab doors at night. I started taking pictures of the cab before sleeping. Driver seat, passenger seat, cup holders, shelves, sleeper. I put a strip of painter's tape across the inside of each door seam so I could tell if they opened. I placed my flashlight under the pillow instead of on the shelf. The third night, nothing happened. That almost made it worse. I woke up in a Walmart lot outside Charleston, West Virginia. Checked the photos, checked the tape, checked the seat, checked the mug. Everything matched. I felt ridiculous. By the fourth night, I had nearly convinced myself the first 2 incidents were fatigue. I delivered in North Carolina, picked up a backhaul in Greensboro, and got assigned to run toward Nashville. The load was household goods in a sealed dry van, mixed pallets, mostly store inventory. I didn't load it. I just hooked, checked paperwork, verified seal and rolled. That detail matters too. I did not see the inside of that trailer. The warehouse had it sealed before I arrived. The yard dog dropped it in the outbound row. I matched the number, checked the seal, tug tested, did my inspection, signed the bills, and left. That night, I parked at a small independent truck stop in western North Carolina, not far from the Tennessee line. It was one of those places that looks like it has survived more by stubbornness than business. 4 fuel pumps, diner closed at 9, gravel lot full of potholes, a faded sign buzzing over the entrance. I almost kept going. I wish I had, but my hours were getting tight, and the weather had turned ugly. Fog in the low spots, drizzle on the windshield, mountain roads ahead. The smart professional choice was to stop. I parked near the front, under a light. There were 6 other trucks in the lot. I bought coffee, asked the clerk if they had working cameras, and he said, "Some of them." I didn't like that answer. Back in the cab, I took my photos, everything in place. Mug in driver cup holder, seat upright, snack bin closed, flashlight under pillow, door wedges in, tape strips placed. Then I set my phone to record audio on the shelf and tried to sleep. I woke just after 2, not to movement this time, to whispering. It was so soft, I thought at first it was radio bleed or someone outside talking near my truck. Then I heard my name. Calvin. I sat up halfway, heart pounding, flashlight in my hand before I was fully awake. The whisper came again. "Calvin." It was coming from the trailer. That sounds impossible. The trailer was 53 feet long, sealed, separated from me by the cab wall, fifth wheel, catwalk, and several feet of open space. I should not have been able to hear anything from inside it unless someone was pounding on the walls. But I heard my name, clear, soft, patient. I turned on every cab light and looked out the mirrors. The lot was quiet. A couple truckers idling. Fog moving through the light beams. No one near my trailer. The tape on both doors was intact. The wedges were still tight. The passenger seat was upright. For one wild second, I felt relieved. Then something tapped from inside the trailer. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Right behind the cab. I grabbed my phone and called 911. No service. I tried dispatch. Call failed. The truck stop had Wi-Fi. But from where I was parked, it wouldn't connect. I considered blowing the air horn until somebody came out, but I was afraid of what would happen if whatever was in the trailer realized I was calling attention to it. That sounds backward now, but fear does that. It makes you protect the silence. I grabbed the CB. Any driver awake at the front lot? This is the blue Volvo by pump 4. I need eyes on my trailer. Static. Then a voice answered, groggy and annoyed. Blue Volvo, what's the problem? I almost cried from relief. I think somebody's messing with my trailer. Can you look without getting close? A pause. Then, I got you. In my left mirror, headlights came on 2 rows over. An older Peterbilt idled forward a few feet, angling, so its headlights washed down the side of my trailer. The driver came back on the radio. I don't see nobody. Seal looks on from here. Can you see the front wall? Negative. Too much fog and your nose in toward the pumps. As he said that, something tapped again. 3 times. From behind me. The Peterbilt driver heard it over my mic because I had keyed it without realizing. He said, "Was that you know?" Another pause. Then he said, "Don't open that trailer." I stayed awake the rest of the night with the engine running and the cab lights on. The Peterbilt driver, whose name was Roy, parked closer and kept his headlights on my rig for almost an hour. Eventually, he had to leave for his own delivery. But before he did, he walked near the front of my truck, not close, to the trailer, and gave me his phone number through the CB in case I needed a witness. With service back, I called dispatch and told them I needed the trailer inspected before I moved. They were irritated until I used the magic words, "possible unauthorized person in sealed trailer." That got attention. They sent me to a company-approved shop 20 miles away, but I refused to break the seal myself. I drove there with every light on and both windows cracked, so I could hear anything unusual. Nothing tapped, nothing whispered. At the shop, 2 mechanics and a supervisor watched me cut the seal. One mechanic filmed on his phone at my request. We opened the doors. The freight looked normal. Pallets wrapped in plastic, load bars in place, no person standing there, no open box big enough to hide in, no obvious disturbance. They checked inside with flashlights. Nothing. The supervisor gave me a look I recognized. The polite look people give when they think you're sleep deprived, but don't want to say it. Then, one of the mechanics found the panel. At the very front of the trailer, behind a stack of lighter pallets, part of the interior wall had been modified. Not enough for a casual inspection to notice. A rectangular section of plywood matched the scuffed wall almost perfectly, but the screws were newer, and there was a small finger hole hidden behind a strip of loose insulation. The mechanic pulled it open. Behind it was a crawl space, not factory. Someone had built it. It ran between the trailer's front wall and a false interior panel, maybe 2 feet deep, wide enough for a thin person to lie down, curled on their side. There was a blanket inside, empty water bottles, food wrappers, a plastic jar half full of urine, a cheap battery fan, a small red flashlight, and a narrow cutout leading to the front exterior access space near the utility box. Even the shop supervisor stopped looking skeptical. Police came, company security came. The warehouse that loaded the trailer swore they knew nothing about it. They said the trailer had been in and out of third-party yards for months. It could have been modified anywhere. I thought that was the answer. Somebody had been riding hidden in trailers, maybe stealing food, maybe trying to get across states unseen. Terrifying, but human, explainable. Then the officer asked me if anything had been taken from the cab. I told him food, a protein bar, crackers, maybe some bottled water from under the bunk. He asked if my doors had been forced. I said no. He asked if I had cameras inside. I said no. He told me to get one. So I did. I bought 2 hidden cameras that same day. One facing the sleeper from the front console, disguised as a charger. Another tucked into a storage pocket, facing the passenger seat and door. Motion activated. Night vision, saved to a memory card and cloud when service allowed. The company took that trailer out of service. They inspected my truck and found nothing wrong. No broken locks. No signs anyone had entered from outside. They offered to put me in a different tractor for a few days, but I said no. That might sound strange, but my truck was the only part of the situation I still understood. I knew its sounds, its smells, its habits. A different cab would have made me feel even less anchored. For 2 nights, the cameras recorded nothing. I slept with the lights on anyway. The 3rd night, after the trailer inspection, I was in Kentucky with a new load, parked at a secure customer lot behind a locked gate, cameras everywhere, guard shack at the entrance, other drivers sleeping nearby. By then, the official theory was that the person in the hidden trailer compartment had escaped before the shop inspection. Maybe through the front access cutout when I stopped somewhere, maybe at the truck stop, maybe while I was inside paying for fuel. Nobody knew. I wanted to believe that. I really did. I set the door wedges, checked the locks, took photos, and went to sleep around midnight. At 3:33 a.m., the camera recorded movement. I did not wake up. That's one of the worst parts. In the video, the cab is dark except for a little glow from the dash. I'm asleep in the bunk, turned toward the wall. For about 20 seconds, nothing happens. Then the sleeper curtain moves. Slowly, not from the front, from behind me. A hand appears at the bottom edge of the bunk. Long fingers, dirty nails. The hand grips the floor and pulls. A man slides out from under my sleeper. I had checked under there. I know I had. I checked every night. But on the footage, he comes out of a space I didn't know existed. A narrow service cavity behind the lower storage drawer. The kind of place wiring and ducting runs through. Not big enough for a normal person. But this man was not normal in size. He was painfully thin. Shoulders folded inward, body moving in a way that looked practiced. He paused beside the bunk and listened to me breathe. Then he stood. His head nearly touched the ceiling. He wore grey sweatpants, a dark hoodie, and no shoes. His face was mostly hidden under the hood, but when he turned toward the camera, the vision caught one eye, wide open, reflecting white. He didn't search the cab. He didn't grab my wallet. He didn't touch the fuel card, or the tablet, or the loose cash in the cup holder. He walked to the passenger seat and sat down, carefully, like it was his chair. Then he turned his head and watched me sleep. For 47 minutes. I know because I watched the time stamp later, unable to stop myself. 47 minutes of that man, sitting 3 feet from me in the dark, hands folded in his lap, head angled toward the bunk. At one point he leaned forward as if listening to something I said in my sleep. At another, he picked up my coffee mug, sniffed it, and set it in the other cup holder. He took a cracker from my snack bin and ate it one tiny bite at a time. Then, just before 4:20, he stood, walked back to the sleeper, crouched beside the bunk, and reached toward my face. His fingers hovered an inch from my cheek. He did not touch me. He just held them there. Then he whispered something. The camera audio barely caught it. "I played that part more times than I should have," he said, still warm. Then he folded himself back under the sleeper, and disappeared. I woke at 6:15 with no idea any of it had happened. The only thing I noticed was the passenger seat had been moved again. I checked the camera while sitting on the edge of the bunk, expecting another false alarm. Maybe shadows, maybe vibration. When I saw the hand come out from under me, I dropped the phone. I got out of the truck so fast I didn't even put shoes on. I ran across the customer lot in socks, yelling for the guard. I didn't care who heard me. I didn't care how insane I looked. Police searched the cab. They found the compartment. Not a big one, not even something I would call a compartment if I hadn't seen the footage. A lower storage drawer under the bunk had been altered so the back panel could slide aside. Behind it was a cavity between the sleeper structure and exterior storage box. Someone had removed insulation, cut plastic, and made just enough room for a thin person to hide curled up. There was fabric stuffed around the edges to muffle sound. There were food wrappers back there, a small bottle, a driver's license belonging to a man I had never met, and several photos, not printed photos, Polaroids of me sleeping, different nights, different clothes, different parking lots visible through the windshield, some from before I ever picked up the modified trailer in Greensboro. That meant he had not started in the trailer. He had been in my truck first. Police later told me they believed he was a drifter who had been moving between trucks and trailers at yards, riding hidden compartments, stealing small amounts of food, avoiding cameras, and possibly entering cabs through unsecured access panels while drivers slept. They said he must have modified my truck at some point, when it was parked for maintenance or in a shared yard. I asked them how he kept getting past my inspections. They didn't have a good answer. I asked how a man that tall fit in that space. They said desperation makes people do things you wouldn't think possible. I asked why he never stole anything valuable. One officer said, maybe theft wasn't what he wanted. They never found him. That is the part everyone asks about. No, they did not find him hiding in the truck when police searched it. By the time I watched the footage, he was already gone. They think he slipped out through the exterior storage hatch sometime between 4:20 and when I woke up, possibly while another truck idled nearby and covered the noise. My company took the Volvo out of service and gave me a hotel room. They offered counseling, paid time off, a new truck, all the things companies offer when they know something terrible happened and they're hoping it won't become a lawsuit. I quit 2 weeks later. I tried to go back. I really did. They gave me a newer Freightliner with better locks, fresh mattress, and everything inspected twice. I lasted 3 nights. The problem is, once the cab stops feeling private, it never becomes private again. Every click in the dark is a hand on plastic. Every shift of the mattress is weight moving under you. Every missing cracker is proof. I still wake up sometimes thinking I heard the sleeper curtain move. I live in a small apartment now and work local warehouse dispatch during the day. I sleep in a normal bed with the door locked, a camera in the hallway, and a chair under the knob like that would stop anything that really wanted in. There is one detail I left out of the police report because I didn't know how to explain it. On the last piece of footage, right before the man crawled back under the sleeper, he looked directly into the hidden camera, not glanced, looked. He knew it was there. Then he smiled, just a little, and lifted one finger to his lip, like we were sharing a secret. A month after I quit, the company mailed me a box of personal items they found. When they finally stripped that Volvo down, spare gloves, old receipts, a phone charger, my dented coffee mug. At the bottom of the box was a folded paper towel. Inside it was a cracker, bitten once and written on the towel in pencil were 4 words: I still have room. Those were 3 truck driver horror stories from roads, convoys, and sleeper cabs that should have been ordinary. But sometimes the most terrifying thing about the highway isn't being alone, it's finding out you weren't. If you use stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with which one disturbed you the most.